So I'm going to share my screen and I'm excited to welcome you to our today's webinar, which is entitled Conflict Without Chaos, Turning Disagreements into Growth. Now, it will give you a heads up. You might benefit if you're a visual person and you like to, or you learn also from clicking around today's webinar, you might benefit from logging in to your Cloverleaf account. This is something where I'm going to be showing you some different scenarios on the team dashboard where you can proactively understand different assessments and how different people of different personality and behavior types may see things differently and may communicate differently. And so if you're a person that will want to see this in the context of one of your teams, you may want to log in to Cloverleaf yourself. So if that's going to be too distracting for you, don't do it. But if you know that you're a person that learns better that way, you may want to do that. Oh, by the way, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Licata. I'm the Senior Learning Strategist at Cloverleaf. Jason, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming out today. My name's Jason. I see some familiar names here in the webinar. If you haven't had a chance to interact with me, I am essentially Cloverleaf's customer support team. So nice to see some of the names that I've chatted with. But yeah, if you've seen me before, that's who I am, and happy to help and share, and looking forward to interacting with you all in today's webinar.
Excellent. And just the secret I love to share is that whenever you're in Cloverleaf and whenever you actually call for help in Cloverleaf in this little bubble here, you actually get Jason during Eastern Time business hours. It's Jason. It's not a bot. So this is the face of Cloverleaf support. So don't ever hesitate to reach out. You get a person. All right. So today, what we're going to talk about is common responses to conflict. We are human beings and we all walk into our work teams with our story about conflict because we're human. Then we're going to talk about how can we reframe conflict, why it may be an opportunity. Then we're going to talk about how we can leverage Cloverleaf to decode conflict. Now, this means being proactive about conversations, one-on-one and team conversations, using the team dashboard. We're going to use our thinking styles and some of our real-time insights to be proactive before we go into situations where we think conflict might ensue. This could be meetings where we're discussing things where maybe two groups of people have different ideas about how we want to do things. Or maybe it's a conversation with someone who communicates differently than we do, and we want to understand how we can be prepared for those conversations. So remember, if you just joined us, we are also working in our resource, which is right here. And in this resource, you're going to get a lot more information that's on the slide. And this is going to kind of also be a little guide for you to use some of what I'm showing you when you're in these situations. So, Jason, if you would just pop that in the chat again, if anybody just joined us, this is going to help you. And you can use it to alongside of today's slides as well. So again, this is also where the video from today's webinar will occur up top here as well. And then we'll give you the opportunity to share feedback. This webinar was created based upon your feedback from the last two webinars. We went through it. We Jason and I actually we go through all your webinar feedback. We rank it. We get some topics and then we look at it and we craft the next webinar. So conflict came up a couple of times in our feedback from the past two webinars. And so that's how we came up with this webinar. So your actual feedback shapes the next topic of the next month's webinar. You can ask questions. We'll also take time for questions throughout, but at the end, if you have any questions, we'll answer them and then we'll share with you the date of our next webinar. And then, of course, again, your feedback will inform that. So a quick poll before we get started, just let us know. We just want to let us know who's joining us from a role perspective. So Jason, if you would just share that poll, just let us know what role best describes you. Are you a senior or a C-suite talent or learning leader? Are you a director or manager level talent and learning leader? Are you a manager of a team? Are you an individual contributor? Are you a coach or consultant? So just let us know what role best describes you. Take a minute to just answer that question. A second. Let us know just what role best describes you. A few more answers would help us out. All right. All right, great. So it looks like our biggest group are individual contributors, with our second group are managers. Excellent. All right, thank you so much. That just helps us out for tracking who's attending. Thank you so much. All right, we can get rid of that. Excellent. Okay, so common responses to conflict. So I want you to think about, as I go through all of these, because I'm going to ask you to share in the chat which one seems to be the one you observe most in your own teams. So the one of the most common responses to conflict is we avoid it, right? It's uncomfortable. We don't like to be involved in conflict, right? Usually when we hear conflict, we first think interpersonal conflict. And so it might be something that we just want to, someone just said in the chat, yeah, we shut it down. We don't want to be involved in it. That's a common response. It's a completely human response. It's something that makes us uncomfortable, and so we might avoid it. Other times, we may escalate it too quickly, right? We may let our emotions sort of, run away with us. Sometimes it happens if it's something that maybe is particularly sensitive to us. And this is something that, we may absolutely, struggle with, where it may sometimes we may have an off day and something may trigger us, and so this is something that may occur. Next, we may misread people's intent. So one of my most favorite colleagues, I have a couple of people that it's very rarely that I quote people that I know, but he said, you will never be judged on your intention. You will always be judged on your behavior and your action, which is why all of us have said at least once in our lives, that's not what I meant, right? So people don't often see our intention. They only hear what we say. They maybe read our body language, but we may run with an assumption. We may assume, oh, that person did or said this because of my assumption. And so we react. Your brain does not register assumption versus truth unless you really stop it, unless you stop your brain and say, is this true or not? I don't know. So often in the moment, if something happens or something is said or you hear something has been done, you might assume intent. And so these are common responses of conflict. So I want to hear from you, which one of these resonates the most, and or is there another response to conflict that you experience often in your own team? You can share in the chat. Okay, avoid, misreading intent. Avoid seems to be winning. Avoiding, we want to just get rid of it. Misreading and avoiding. Oh, curious. Catherine, I like that. That's a good response there, Catherine. Avoiding and misreading. Yep. Seem to be the most common. Avoiding. Yeah. Running with that assumption, right? Used to be avoiding, but now escalates too quick, right? So it's sometimes it shifts over time. Avoiding, combination of all three. Disconnect, right? Maybe just like, I want to disconnect from this group of people, right? See, but avoiding, delegate the issue to somebody else, misread that intent. And that's, in a perfect world, we all try to slow down, right? To have that space to process. And that is ideal. Trying to discuss the intentions is also a good response. That's a great response. We want to try to discuss it. Okay. Yeah, it's avoiding. A lot of the responses seem to be avoiding, right? Because again, it just feels no one wants to sit in discomfort, right? No one wants to. We try to sort of push away things that make us feel uncomfortable. Well, here's the thing. What if conflict is an opportunity? Now, we have to kind of separate and sort conflict in our minds because we have to leverage courage. Strong teams don't completely shy away from conflict, they actually leverage it. How can we make better decisions together? How can we build trust? Even if sometimes we have to have difficult conversations. Now, teams that actually engage with Cloverleaf more frequently are able to use some of the insights to sort of navigate what's happening a little bit more productively. Why? Remember what I said to you, but my colleague said that you're never judged on your intent is because what Cloverleaf sheds light on is your intention. Cloverleaf helps explain to people why you might be doing and saying what you do. And that's something that previously we never had insight on each other. So Cloverleaf is going to help you understand. It's going to say to me, hey, what's important to Jason is this. So Jason might ask a lot of questions in a meeting. Now I can depersonalize Jason's behavior and not make it about me. It's sharing Jason's intention separate from me as an individual. And so these Cloverleaf insights, if we can look at them before I go into a meeting with Jason or before I go into a meeting with my team, I can actually plan for how I might respond or how I might approach something before escalation. Ideally, we want to be prepared. Now, this isn't to say that you want to be paranoid and like assume everything's going to escalate, but it is to say you want to have some tools in your back pocket, being proactive. I want to have some tools in my back pocket that if something does escalate, I'm prepared. That's all. If it doesn't escalate, great. That's a win. If it doesn't result in a difficult conversation, excellent. Perfect. But if it does, this session is about being prepared, using Cloverleaf ahead of time to be prepared so that you don't have to go into chaos, right? So that you don't have to then walk out of a meeting and say, what was that? Like we've all had that feeling, right? We've all had that feeling where you walk out of a meeting or you walk off a Zoom and you go, oh, what was that? What just happened? We want to eliminate or at least reduce those amount of occurrences of what just happened, right? So you want to identify these conflict patterns with Cloverleaf. So now would be the time. If you're a person that learns by looking, or you're a person that learns by seeing and touching and playing around, if you want to do that, I would log in to your Cloverleaf, right? And then you can look at a team, a specific team that you, or even a specific person that you might be having a challenge with. Okay. So you want to spot some friction points. So you want to look at different communication styles. So what you're seeing now is an image of a team dashboard. I'm going to go on an actual team dashboard in a minute. So you want to spot different ways people make decisions and work preferences. You also want to be consuming your real-time coaching tips. So the more you consume your coaching tips, whether through email or whether through your daily coaching on your dashboard, the more that you gain that insight into your own awareness and your other awareness. So what do I mean by that? It's great to get your daily emails, but I highly recommend your daily coaching from your dashboard because when you are able to also reflect on your coaching tip, but then also reflect on the tip of your team member, it makes you think a little bit more because sometimes you get the email. I don't know about you, but I get the email on my phone and I got one I open sometimes in the morning and I'm not thinking. But if you're actually in work mode in your computer and you're looking at this, your brain's a little bit more thinking and in work mode. So you can actually take note and make a reflection here, and you'll have a stronger relationship to how you're reacting and reflecting to your coaching tip. So it's really important to be really absorbing and your coaching tips on a more frequent basis. Your coaching tips are the same as if you're going to the gym. So the more frequently that you consume them, the stronger your self and other awareness becomes. The same way, if you go to the gym once in a month, you're not going to see a result. If you go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week, you are going to see a result. If you consume your coaching tips 2, 3 times a week, that's going to start to build strength in your other self and other awareness. You also want to be able to have productive conversations. So you want to look ahead before these meetings so that you can, if there is tension that might occur, you can have productive dialogue. So that means hopping on here and not just consuming these tips, but how do I have a difficult conversation, or how can I give feedback, right, to Quinn, right? So now I'm actually using the features of Cloverleaf to have a conversation with Quinn in a way that she is going to be able to receive that information, right? And so I want to use the features of Cloverleaf to prepare for those conversations in a proactive way so that it should conflict ensue, I now understand a little bit more about how Quinn thinks and I can be prepared for that conversation. Okay, so if you're following along here, we are about to go into 3 different scenarios on our dashboard. And these 3 scenarios here are going to also, there's much more information in the resource than is on the slide. So everything I'm going to be sharing is in the resource, okay? I'm just using the slide as a guide, but this is going to outline what you want to look for, right? And these are common pairs and common scenarios that you're going to see on teams with individuals that have different work styles and different communication styles. So the first scenario that we're going to work through is these communication styles with DISC. And we're going to talk about a scenario where we have a high D team leader. Okay. And usually, not always, but usually those that are leading, high fast-paced teams, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes they may have a higher D score. And we're going to talk about when a higher D team leader wants a quicker decision on a project deadline, but we've got a higher S team member, and that to them feels overwhelming. They feel rushed and they want to have a decision. They want to have a conversation first to get some team input. Okay. Now, this can also work for team differences too. You might have a group of people with some of you who are high Ds and some of you who are high S's. And the high S's want to move quick and the S's want to have a discussion. They want to get some more input. So you can notice this, you can get ahead of this. Let's say you're either having 2 people are having a conversation, or you're about to go into a meeting, right? At some kind of project decision meeting with a group of people, and you've got some high Ds and you've got some high S's. So I'm going to hop on to the team dashboard. So in this case, I'm going onto this team dashboard and I'm going to take an individual scenario. I'm looking at a high D. So I've got Tariq, who's a high D. He's got an 87 in D. And I'm looking at a high S. And I'm looking here at Noor, who has a 90 in her S score. Okay. Now, you can also use a helpful feature on the team dashboard. So I'm looking at DISC and I'm bringing up Tariq and Noor. Okay. And it's telling me a little bit about how Tariq and Noor are a little bit different. So if I'm Tariq or Noor, and I'm about to go into a conversation about this project, I can understand a little bit more about each about the opposite person by understanding what the desired outcome. What's the desired outcome? Well, Tariq wants to sort of have mutual understanding and approval. He's enthusiastic, impulsive, and outspoken. But if I'm Noor, um, I want a little bit more of a slower approach, right? So these two prefer different environments and work styles. Okay. So Noor probably prefers a steady environment. Tariq wants to sort of move fast. He wants more interaction. He might be a little bit impulsive. He might want to move fast. And Noor wants to say, wait a minute, can we discuss this? Right. So I'm going to just go back on to the slide for just a minute, and we're going to talk about the different approaches. So the potential conflict is the D is going to be quick and direct and is going to be pretty results driven in what they're saying and what their expectation is. And the S is more process oriented. So if you have ever been in a situation where you do feel rushed by another person, you know that how this feels. It feels like high pressure. And if you ever been the D where you feel like we have to move, we have a goal, and these people are slowing me down, you know how that feels as well. So you spot the differences in style. So I just did that for you. I found the two different people. I found the combination that, and I also found the thinking style, so I could compare. And you want to then make sure that you are consuming the tips. So, for example, a coaching tip that the high D leader might receive, and this is all in your resource. Your direct approach helps get results quickly, but slowing down and allowing time for reflection will help team members feel more confident in their decisions. So, if Tariq was consuming his coaching tips, he would be getting this kind of a tip that would help him modify his approach. Now, a coaching tip that a high S team member might receive in their email or their daily coaching might look like, you value harmony, but sometimes clarity is more important than consensus. Try setting a deadline for gathering input so decisions don't get delayed indefinitely. So you can see if these two people are consuming these tips, they're kind of getting some coaching. This is automated coaching to help them shift. Now, if you notice in your resource, there are some questions for each of these people to leverage. So I want you to notice this is a great resource for you and or your team. The high D, right? These are some questions you can ask if you're getting frustrated. What's the information that we need before making a decision, and what can wait? These are some questions that can help you collaborate better. What's the smallest step we can take right now to move forward? So when you ask a high S, what is the smallest step? You're helping the S break it down or chunk it down to feel manageable. Similarly, here are some questions that the S can ask the D to de-escalate the conflict. Remember that second response to conflict was around escalating. What's a way we can make sure people feel involved without slowing the momentum? Do you see how we're trying to create partnership? We understand there needs to be momentum, but what's a way we can make sure everybody feels included? Or would it be helpful if we can set a deadline for gathering input so we don't lose time? Do you see how this would be a question that might got sparked if if Noor was consuming her coaching tips? So this is a great way to be able to sort of slow down that process. So one of the people shared in the chat, I want to be able to slow down and process what the actual conflict is, right? So this is one of the ways, right? This is one of the pairings. I don't have time to go through every pairing of every assessment or disc. I'm going to be going through a couple of different scenarios. But this is a common source of conflict when we've got a person who wants to move fast and a person who wants to move slower in any kind of situation. So if you have a question about this particular pairing, please feel free to ask it in the chat. If you have a question about this particular pairing. Yes, Wendy, daily coaching is the best thing ever. Okay, if you have a question relevant to this specific topic, that would be this particular topic, that would be great. Yes. Awesome. Okay, awesome. Okay, I don't so we have to move to the next topic. So I don't want to get into, I'm sorry, I don't want to get into digging into other pairs and disc. Otherwise, I'll be off schedule. But we can dig into other pairs in a future webinar. But I picked out some of the most common pairs. But I do want to move to then so I'm trying to move along to also give you various assessments so you can move along. If we have time at the end, I will try to share some additional information. But I do apologize. I just want to make sure that we can get through this content. And then if we have time, I'll be happy to backtrack. Okay. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the differing of conflict approaches. So confrontation versus avoidance. And we can see this in differing types of DISC, Enneagram, and 16 types results. So this is a scenario where maybe a high D manager will be giving blunt feedback to a conflict averse Enneagram 9 teammate who might shut down instead of, responding. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to be comparing two different people on this particular team, Quinn and Sage. So I'm going to hop on back to the team dashboard and I'm going to bring up Quinn and Sage. So I'm going to go to Quinn. I've got to go to go to disk first. So I've got to, why isn't that bringing up? Go to Enneagram. I don't know why Quinn isn't there for some reason. Oh, Quinn's right there. That's why. Okay, Sage. Okay. All right, so I'm going to bring those two people up. And so there's the potential conflict. So direct communicators who tend to be a high D or an ENTJ or an Enneagram 8. So these are different assessments. They're not, now a high D isn't always an ENTJ, isn't always an Enneagram 8. We're not saying that these people always have the same assessment results. We're just saying these types, right, you may occur as one of these types. They prefer open confrontation and fast resolution. Conflict averse individuals sometimes show up as a high S, an INFP, or an Enneagram 9. They prefer indirect conversations where there's not as much at stake. So in this case, I'm pairing a high D with an Enneagram 9. So what do you want to do? You want to identify who are the differences, who prefers direct versus the indirect communication. So I've gone on and I've identified my high D. So I've identified Quinn and I've identified my 9, who is Sage in this case. Okay. And I look at I'm going to go to Enneagram here, right? And I'm looking at Quinn. And I'm looking at how they have different approaches. I'm looking at how they might resolve conflict by focusing on the core issue and not looking to the outside for that validation, right? And so their conflict may be, their sources of conflict may be different. This person minimizes their own needs, whereas this person may reveal some shortcomings. I'm going to look at DISC as well, right? So this also, they work quite differently. They have complementary styles. This communication is impatient and blunt, whereas Sage's communication is more controlled, more analytical. Okay. So as you can see, they're a little bit different. And so we ask ourselves, how can these two people get together or in terms of this feedback conversation? So this person who is the high D, who is going to be a little bit more blunt, has to give feedback to this conflict averse Enneagram 9 teammate. So you want to think about if the high D person is consuming their coaching tips and if that Enneagram 9 or that ENFP is consuming their coaching tips. So I'm going to go back on to the resource for a moment. So the high D manager, your direct approach can be effective, but frame your feedback with empathy. This helps others to stay engaged. So a high D manager, their intention is not always to not be empathetic. It's just that they're very focused on the goal. And they sometimes have to remember you're talking to a human being. And so try to lead with strength before discussing those improvement areas, right? And so you want to frame that feedback with empathy. So that might be a coaching tip that the high D manager is receiving. Now, that conflict averse team member, if they're consuming their coaching tips, they might see something like, you may prefer avoiding tension, but ask clarifying questions. This is going to help you get what you need from your feedback rather from withdrawing. So what are we trying to do here? Cloverleaf is trying to empower the person who's conflict avoidant to speak up, to not just shut down and put their head down if someone is speaking too directly to them. So what do we have here? We have some powerful questions here. We have the D with some questions to help tone them down. What's the best way for me to give you feedback so it feels constructive? So this is a question that's kind of dovetailing off that coaching tip of, hey, you might want to be a little bit more empathetic here. Now we also have some coaching questions for that high S and an INFP or that 9. Hey, if I disagree with you, what's the best way for me to bring it up? When we talk about challenges, how can we make sure we're both on the same page? Or what's a way that I can feel heard while to make sure we can still move forward? You may want to ask these questions outside of a conflict situation before it arises, right? So, and I'm moving from Enneagram and DISC. So this is a good question, Iris. What I'm saying is that sometimes these types may be conflict averse. So a high S, an INFP, or an Enneagram 9 may be conflict averse, whereas someone who is a high D may be less conflict averse. They may tackle it head on. An Enneagram 8, a high D is going to take conflict and not be afraid of it. Whereas somebody who is an Enneagram 9, someone who is an INFP, someone who is a high S is going to resist conflict. So it's looking at these typical types in these assessments and saying, if I'm a high D and I now have to give this constructive feedback to someone who I know is an Enneagram 9, right? I'm looking at it and seeing how can I be more sensitive to it, right? So right now I'm talking about using the tool with people that are on Cloverleaf. So that's what these webinars are geared towards, people that are interacting in conflict with people that are on the Cloverleaf platform with you. So these webinars are all geared to educate you through how do I use Cloverleaf with the people that I am on Cloverleaf with in my organization, and how can I use it in some creative ways. And I'm giving you some additional content like these questions so that you can understand a little bit more about the different types. So this is content that's sort of extrapolating from the types. If you're not, let's say, a DISC or Enneagram expert, I'm saying, hey, if you're a high S and you have a person who's a high D who's giving you, feedback or asking from you, here are some questions you can ask so that you're not getting walked all over. So that's what the purpose of these particular webinars are. Now, let's talk about, so any questions just about this particular conflict type? How do we identify who prefers direct communication versus indirect communication? So what we're saying here is direct communicators tend to be, not always, tend to be high Ds, ENTJs, Enneagram 8s. Conflict diverse individuals tend to be high S's, INFPs, Enneagram 9s. So these are preferences. These are preferences, right? If you can't find someone, they may not have completed the assessment. That may be the reality. They may not have completed the assessment, or they may not be on that team. Okay, this is a team scenario. So let's talk about team conflict. This is one of the biggest team conflicts we see. This is big picture versus detail oriented. How many times you go into a team meeting and you've got people who are talking about the big picture and you're thinking, wait a minute, how is that going to work? Right? So, scenario, a marketing strategy team who are a bunch of intuitives in 16 types, they pitch a big rebrand idea. While the project management team, they're all sensing on 16 types. They want a detailed rollout plan. So the potential conflict is the ends. Now we're talking 16 types. So I'm going to hop back up here. Okay. So I'm going to go up here. You've got the ends over here, and you've got the project managers of the team. They're the S's. Okay. Now, just understand, we're talking about 16 types. The perception function in 16 types is about how you process information as it's coming to you. The sensors are going to take in all the details. They're thinking about what are the steps? Where's the plan? The people who are more intuitive are talking about the abstract ideas. They're using intuition with their gut instinct. They're forward-looking. They're the creators, the innovators, while the sensors are the detail plan people. So you've got a team and you've got the majority of them who are these big picture people, but you've got these project managers who are trying to get the work done. Okay. So the conflict is you've got a bunch of visionaries. They're all about the strategy and innovation, but you've got the thinkers. They value structure. They want the details and they want the practical execution. So we go to the dashboard and we identify who are the team members, who are the big picture thinkers, and who are our detail people. And we need to also balance that, right? So we can see right here, we've got a bunch of visionaries. The majority of the team are visionaries. And we've got these two project managers, and they are the ones that are going to get the work done. And they are the ones that are going to have to take all the visionary ideas, all the innovation from all these people. And these are the ones that are going to have to get the plan done. Now, if you're like me, there's nothing worse than what I call an idea party, a meeting that turns into an idea party. These are meetings where nothing gets done. These are meetings where we're just all tossing around ideas, where there's no action plan. These are meetings where these two people will absolutely bang their head against a wall, and that causes a lot of friction. So if you have ever left a meeting feeling that way, you probably feel like Cameron and Casey. You want an actual rollout plan. So going into this meeting, right, you don't want to go blind into this meeting. Now, you want as a team who's divided in these two areas. These are some coaching tips that these two groups might consume if they were consuming their coaching tips. So the intuitives are going to be receiving coaching tips that look like this. Your ability to see opportunities is a strength. But if you want buy-in from Cameron and the other project manager, you've got to give concrete examples. How is it going to happen? Don't just show me a beautiful chart. Tell me how it's going to work. Now, the sensing thinkers might be getting a coaching tip like this. Structure's great, but great ideas start out messy. It's okay. Allow for some time for brainstorming before execution. So oftentimes people that are sensors, they want the spreadsheet right now, but we need to brainstorm. It's okay to be creative before we move to execution. So it's about striking the balance. It's about creating the balance from big picture thinking to execution. This is a very common source of conflict for teams. Visionaries, the people who envision the great ideas and the people who get the ideas done. So if you are the big picture idea oriented person. These are some questions that you can ask. What details do you need to feel comfortable moving forward? Now, my little hot tip, ask that before the meeting. Hi, everyone. What are the details you expect me to bring to the meeting so that we can action? That's my little hot tip. Okay. How do you see this idea playing out in practice? If you were to break this into 3 steps, what would it be? Let them tell you. Now, if you're the censor, here are some questions you could ask. What's the goal behind this idea? What are the metrics for success? Now, this is the most common question that the censors will ask. Tell me what the metrics of success will be. How will we measure the success of this project? Don't knock the idea, ask the question. The biggest mistake that the censors make is they knock the idea rather than get curious and ask the question. So ask the question. What's the first thing we need to do to make this real? Now, I also love this. What are the potential obstacles? What could get in the way of this project working? Because most innovators and visionaries, they never think of the obstacle. They think this is the greatest idea ever. Okay, great. What could possibly get in the way? Make them do that thinking. That's one of the biggest things I ask as a coach when someone comes up with a great idea. I ask, what are the potential obstacles? How will you overcome them? What's our plan to overcome them? That question may seem kind of annoying, but it's necessary. It's part of strategic planning. Okay. How does this fit with what we already have in place? This is part of SMART goal setting, right? What the R in SMART goal setting is relevant. How is this relevant to what we're already doing? Is it related? So you want to make sure that, and sometimes in SMART goal, they say it's realistic. I prefer relevant because sometimes people set goals that have nothing to do with what we're up to. So relevant, how does this fit with what we already have in place? So why these questions are key is that for the intuitives, this helps you kind of build a bridge between vision and execution. And if you're a censor, you're going to help ground the visionaries with some actionable thoughts, and you're going to make them do necessary thinking. So again, this is one of the most common team conflicts is ideas that don't have legs or spreadsheets that don't have vision. So we really want to make sure that when we're going into planning, when we're going into project execution, that we are creating this balance and we're looking at our team dashboard. Anytime you're doing strategic planning, you should go to this perception function and understand who are my ends, who are my visionaries, and who are going to be my censors, who are going to be my detail project managers, because that's where you're going to see some of the friction. Plan ahead for that. You may even want to, prior to that meeting, even just bring this up and say, let's get this out of the way. What should we prepare prior to this meeting so that we don't have conflict? What are the things that people need going into this meeting? Have a pre-meeting, because this will help you break down some of this big conflict. Okay. I know I just shared a lot of information with you. I want to give you the opportunity to ask some questions. Some other features to consider, like I just shared with you. While you pop your questions in, I will share. You obviously want to use the thinking styles as much as possible. These allow you to compare how you think, how you work, how you react to conflict. I shared with you the insight search. This is always so helpful to be asking questions about yourself or about others to prepare for conversations. You also can use the personal dashboard. So if I wanted to learn how to better work with Reese, let me just see, actually, I think this is Reese. If I wanted to learn how to better work with Kai, I could also be going to a personal dashboard and finding out what are Kai's conflict triggers, right? I could understand before I go into a conversation with Kai, what are her conflict triggers? I could be asking a question about Kai. I could be seeing all of Kai's actual results and understanding a little bit more about how Kai thinks. So I could, if I'm going into, let's say, a performance conversation and I have to give Kai performance feedback, or if Kai is my manager and I have to give feedback to Kai or ask Kai something, I could understand a little bit more about Kai's leadership or Kai's work style. And I could understand a little bit more about how Kai thinks. And so you could go on to, again, Kai's specific profile to understand a little bit more by going through some of these specific tips. Okay. I want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions in the chat that are relevant to these topics that we discussed. I will address, someone had the question before that about I's and C's. So I'm going to go back and address it before I see any questions in the chat. So I'm going to go back onto the team dashboard. So people that are high in influence tend to think very quickly. They're focused on creating connection and relationship. I'm going to go back to a larger team here, bigger team. So remember, DISC is actually was one of an assessment that was designed specifically for work teams, and it is influenced by your function that you have. So people that thrive in creating messaging and creating partnership, these are your high I's. Now, one of the things that sometimes I's struggle with is they sometimes miss details. And so C's are going to say, hey, wait a minute, what about this or that? And so they will notice the details that the I misses. And so one of the key things for I's to remember is that you need to not take personally the detail that the C is pointing out that you might have missed. And so the I needs to remember that it's part of your nature sometimes to move fast. I'm a high I. It's part of our nature to move fast, to think quickly, and we may miss those details. It's better to create partnership with a high C, because that high C is going to notice all the things that you miss, and is going to polish all those presentations that you need to create buy-in with that other department. So you want to always create partnership with a C. And for the C, you want to understand that the relationship is so important for the I. So when you offer your suggestion, don't offer it as poking holes or like I gotcha with that detail, or I gotcha with that spelling error on your PowerPoint. Like, don't be the grammar police. Offer it as, hey, I want to help you out. I want to make sure before you go pitch this to marketing that this is perfect, right? So do it in the spirit of service, and you will go further with your relationship with your high I. So those are just tips to create partnership with those people. So again, it's just to remember, let's just to remember some of those connections. When people are the same, they can also clash with each other just because they are very similar. So like if you said, Emily, both are ENFJs, and then there's the Enneagram 8 and 9. So remember, Enneagram, you have your Enneagram type, but then you have your Enneagram wing. So if you're an Enneagram 8, you're either going to be a 9 or a 1 wing. So probably one of those people, probably the 9 is either an 8 wing or the 8 is either a 9 wing. So they're probably pretty similar. So sometimes it's just getting them in a room together to just acknowledge that we're probably up to the same thing and we're probably very similar. But the other thing I always recommend, if people are similar or if people are clashing a lot, if you're the one dealing with those people, I will often tell you, just get one of them on a Zoom or whatever it is and pull up their Enneagram side by side and just have them read it. Get out of the drama and the details of whatever's happening and just have them look on the screen and say, what do you notice here? And it will take them out of the story of what is happening in the conflict, and when it will help depersonalize it.